Alrighty everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be checking out a build for the Prismatic Titan that emphasizes survivability and aggressive ad control. So as always, let's start out with our abilities. First up, we have our super, Twilight Arsenal. Great damage super on Titan that will apply weaken to targets that the Void Axes hit. And with the most recent update, this just got a 25% increase in its overall damage. Next up, we're using Rally Barricade. Now only use this or your regular Barricade, as Dranger's Lash has a unique interaction with the thruster that I'm not a fan of for this build. You have your choice of jump, and our melee, you guessed it, Frenzied Blade. But I promise, it's still really cool. It's great for getting 3 charged melees that at base will sever targets on hit. And for our grenade, we're using Shackle Grenade. So this is very important as it will allow us to suspend targets on impact. This will also give us some added utility later, but at base will allow us to stun unstoppable champions. Suspended targets will also turn into tangles when defeated. Now for our aspects, starting out with Consecration. While sliding, activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap into the air. While airborne, activate your charged melee again to slam to the ground and create a second larger wave of damaging solar energy. If the wave hits a scorched target, they ignite. Yes, another Prismatic Consecration Slam Titan, but we got some cool interactions coming up here. A full slam will let you stun unstoppable champions, but a partial use of Consecration is still good if you just want to send out a scorching wave at the expense of half of your melee. In our next aspect, we're using Dranger's Lash. Activate your Barricade ability to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging the targets it hits. Sounds simple, but there's more utility to come to this later. But for now, we have our third ability that will let us stun unstoppable champions. Now let's move over to our fragments, starting out with Facet of Blessing. Melee final blows start health regeneration, while Transcendent, melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies. So here, we give ourselves some really useful healing for getting kills with our Consecration Slams, especially because this is really the only part of our build giving us heals. But our next fragment adds some damage resistance, and that is Facet of Protection. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage, while Transcendent, the effect is increased. So obviously, we're going to have this fragment equipped, as damage resistance is always a great thing in our builds. And on top of that, this also gives a plus 10 to our strength stat. Next up, we have Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. So, our suspension counts as a darkness debuff. So both our grenade and our barricade can apply suspension, which will lead to our Consecration Slams dealing even more damage while targets are suspended. And this also gives a plus 10 to our discipline stat. Next up, we have Facet of Devotion. Defeating targets afflicted with strand or stasis debuffs grants bonus light transcendence energy. So with this build, there's a lot of dark damage going on and not as much light damage going on. So this is going to help us out in getting our full transcendence meter. It also gives us a plus 10 to our strength stat. Next up, we have Facet of Bravery. Defeating targets with grenade final blows grants volatile rounds to your void weapons. Defeating targets with powered melee final blows grants unraveling rounds to your strand weapons. So this is really dependent on the weapons you're going to be using, but our primary exotic is strand, so this will work really well here. Unraveling rounds are like a bunch of needle-like projectiles that will continue to damage a target, and will also let your strand weapons stun barrier champions. And rounding it out, we're going to be using Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. So, very simple, but also very useful for getting our barricade back. Now, because of our exotic, we have very easy access to Woven Mail. So by casting our barricade and suspending a target, we're going to get Woven Mail, which is going to count as an elemental buff, giving us our class ability energy back more quickly. Now let's go over to our exotic, starting out with Final Warning. Our intrinsic, All at Once, reads, holding down the trigger marks targets within range and loads multiple bullets, which fire in a burst with increased stability on trigger release. Hitting a marked target with a fully charged burst will unravel them. Our trait, Pick Your Poison, reads, while hip firing, projectiles will track marked targets, dealing increased body shot damage on impact. While aiming, projectiles have greatly increased velocity and deal extra critical hit damage to marked targets. And our catalyst allows this weapon's hits against marked targets to deal increased damage and have a chance to refund ammo to the magazine. So with the catalyst that Final Warning received with the launch of the final shape, it made this weapon really good. It already has the ability to apply darkness debuff in the form of Unravel, And charging up its shots and shooting while ADS at a marked target will also deal massive damage. So in a build where we're suspending a lot of things, it's nice to get some really good damage on some tankier targets. And for our next exotic, we're using Ambient Leap. Our trait, Puppeteer's Control, reads, improves Drenger's Lash. Projectiles track more aggressively and farther. Gain Woven Mail when you suspend a target. So here is where a lot of components come together. The exotic makes a total of 3 suspending waves that launch out from the barricade placement that will pretty aggressively track targets to suspend. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not use a Stoicism exotic class item that has Spirit of the Abeyant on it? And I would agree to use one of those if it came with the ability to gain Woven Mail upon suspending targets. As it is, the Spirit of the Abeyant only grants the improved tracking and additional waves of suspension, and will not grant Woven Mail upon any source of suspension, not even from the Drenger's Lash. Whereas the exotic, Ambient Leap, will give Woven Mail on any source of suspension. Now, as for our mods, we're going to start out with some seasonal ones. You're going to want to use Threaded Blast for large damaging explosions when destroying a tangle with a strand weapon, Solar Fulmination for increased damage and size of solar ignitions, Radiant Orbs to become radiant when picking up an orb of power, and Shield Crush for melee benefits while Woven Mail is active and grenade benefits while Radiant is active. As for our armor mods, you're just going to want to use general mods that improve the overall quality and uptime of our abilities. In terms of stats, I would aim for high resilience, discipline, and strength. So, for our gameplay loop, we want to start by throwing either a grenade or casting our barricade to suspend targets. This giving us Woven Mail, which because of Shield Crush, will increase our melee damage. Targets that are suspended or affected by other darkness debuffs will also take bonus light ability damage thanks to Facet of Courage. So we can then use our Consecration Slams to deal massive damage to them, stunning unstoppable champions and giving us health regeneration on final blows. Melee final blows will also grant our strand weapons unraveling rounds, which is where we can then use our final warning to unravel targets and stun barrier champions. You can feel free to pop your super anytime you need to deal some big damage, or Transcendence to speed up the loop of suspensions and slams. So that's the build, but before we get to the showcase, I just wanted to take another opportunity to plug the Twitch. That's twitch.tv/allrightygaming, where I stream Destiny 2. With all that out of the way, let's go right to the showcase. Alrighty, let's see what this build can do. Was hoping for Hive to show off the build against unstoppable champions, but we can still make do with this. Suspended and slam. Classic Consecration.
You've got mail.
I'm just out here getting silver leaves, I guess. I don't know how you get those. I haven't really done a whole lot of Solstice just yet. No exploding shanks, right? 'Cause that would suck. A lot of enemies. Oh no. Just suspend them with a barricade pop. Demolitionists. This is why you always save your super in Onslaught. But no matter. We're gonna get these guys taken care of. We're gonna get this place clear. And there's the boss is dead. So damn it, bro. Really? Ain't that just my luck? Suspend these guys. And there's the slam. What the heck? Suspend all that right there. Hold on a second. Let's get bro right.
Fantastic work!
Alright, hopefully no exploding shanks. Now, you might be wondering why I'm using the sidearm and I don't have unstoppable sidearm equipped. Your Prismatic Grenade, your normal grenade, your charged melees, and even your barricade are all capable of stunning unstoppable champions. So I didn't feel like I needed my primary weapon to also be capable of doing that. So I preferred to save it for when we get unraveling rounds. That way I can stun barrier champions with it. Alrighty, on to the boss. Give me health regeneration on those slams. Give me Woven Mail. And the boss is dead. Alrighty. That was the build. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you next time. Stay alrighty.